must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Today, thousands and thousands of Africans and many countries in Africa have conflicts. Notably, from Libya, Cameroon, Nigeria, Biafra, and Boko Haram, to Democratic Republic of Congo, of where we have seen a resurgence of the past military and conflicts coming back in that country. Hundreds and hundreds of people have been displaced, killed, maimed, tortured, raped, several of them dying of hunger, starvation, and other natural causes. The fighting seems not to be ending. For the sake of Libya, the Libyan recognized international government is under siege in Tripoli from another faction recognized by Egypt, France, UAE, and other countries. Whereas the one in Tripoli is recognized by the UN, it has been bombarded, has been strangulated, and many millions of Libyans are dying of hunger, lack of water. The water system has been cut off. The bombardment goes on. In Democratic Republic of Congo, we've seen more of active rebel activities returning to the region after some silence has been observed. When we come to Cameroon, we see millions and millions of Amazonians slaughtered. Yet, when you come to Biafra, again millions and hundreds of millions and millions are worried, displaced, tortured by the Buhari regime. Yet again in the north, we see Boko Haram killing, maiming, abducting, and burning down villages in the same Nigeria. When you cross over to Central African Republic, the same is the history that has littered Africa. While all these events are taking shape, Africa is silent. Africa is not making enough efforts to find a solution to what is causing the problems in Libya, in DRC, in Cameroon, in Nigeria, Biafra, and now you add in Khartoum, Sudan. As people die, the people of Africa have no answers, have no solutions. There is nothing to bring an end to the conflicts that have killed Africa. We seem to be new ones manufactured, old ones reignited, encouragement coming from external powers. One power that has been seen in the shadows of all these conflicts, especially the one of Libya that has escalated in the Saharan region of Africa, is France. When you come to Democratic Republic of Congo, the same country is in the shadows. The war can be seen is France. When you come to Cameroon, in Amazonia, The one behind that has the key to bringing peace is France. Therefore, our question as Africans, why are we silent? Why are we not saying enough is enough of the wars? Thank you. There are a number of countries in Africa that produce oil. Kenya today became one of the member states of oil producing countries in Africa. It exported its first oil where President Uhuru Kenyatta flagged off the oil that was got from Turkana in one of the northeastern parts of this country. But is oil a curse to Africa? Is oil a curse to the entire places where oil is found? We see in the Middle East, the wars in Iran, in Saudi Arabia, in Yemen, in United Arab Emirates. It has developed the area in Qatar. We all have many cities, skyscrapers coming up because of the proceeds from the oil. But can Africa emulate that example and bring the same oil proceeds to make sure that it makes lives better for the people, the betterment of the people of Africa and their families and their other activities? I want to see that. But I might not be able to explain why Africa always falls a victim. Are there external forces that make the oil in Africa to become sour? Is it the competition of the oil companies, Total and Shell BP and others that come to Africa to take the share of the oil? Simply because we have no ability to be able to drill the oil ourselves, refine it ourselves. It is shocking, therefore, to go to Nigeria, for example, a country that produces third in the world for oil production, has no petrol at petrol station. Is this not a curse? If it's not a curse, what do you call it? Thank you. Good evening, viewers. Welcome to Punchline Africa TV, broadcasting all the way from Nairobi, the Republic of Kenya in Nairobi, the best city of Africa. Thank you very much, viewers, for listening to our programs the whole day in this morning. Many of you who have been watching our programs, going back to the archives to see what we produce for Africa. This evening, the show is Diplomatic Leaks. In the Diplomatic Leaks show, we bring about quite a number of interesting revelations that are taking place behind the scenes. What is happening between countries that are talking about Brexit, talking about American foreign policy on Africa. We bring issues that affect Africa. Are we being double standards? Are there double standards in American foreign policy? We want to look carefully about this policy. Is it injuring Africa? Obama was in power. Stability and development, although it did not come directly to Africa, it had impact on Africa. But since Trump shot to power, became the president, we have seen quite a lot of damaging revelations, discussions, outbursts coming from Washington, directed at African continent, belittling African continent, cutting aid to places which needed America's hand, removing, putting embargoes, sanctions on countries. These are the things that we want to look at this evening. You are free to call. The telephone number is +5 +254 795 638 145. Nairobi, Kenya. We shall look at American bad foreign policy on Africa. Of course, the countries that America has gone through, where it has left us with eggs in our faces, where America itself has carried an egg, where America has failed to use its world mighty power that it has to help us to yield, to get these conflicts out of this continent. We shall look at that. We shall look at those countries. One of the countries we shall single out, and we shall use them as case studies: Somalia, Libya, South Sudan, Central African Republic, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, Uganda, Cameroon, and now the latest that we want to see, that we see friction coming east, west. Of course, it touches Africa. It is the situation that we find ourselves in. The situation that we find ourselves in is what makes us talk about diplomatic leaks. What are the diplomats doing? What do they do? What do American foreign policy? Why has it changed under the Republicans? Why has it become confrontational? Why has it become a foreign policy that talks about almost theft? Why is it that America refuses to sanction Al-Shabaab, yet they know that Kenyans have died, Ugandans have died, Africans have died, American nationals have died, British nationals have died in this continent as a result of Al-Shabaab? I want to know this afternoon that perhaps there is a sinister plan, but perhaps the intelligence systems in this continent must watch out, that perhaps these wars are put on us. Another country that we shall look at is Democratic Republic of Congo, the ever-boiling pot of Africa. Time in, time out, the boiling pot boils every time. A new government comes in place, new rebels are brought in, new mechanisms, new types of warfare. This is what we want to discuss this evening. Let's begin. Country number 1, Somalia. 1991, Americans hurriedly, with their pants down, ran very fast, created chaos in Somalia after telling Siad Barre to work on a number of reforms, of which the army was not very happy with. One of the reforms that Siad Barre wanted to bring was devolution. And this caused tension between the army generals. And Siad Barre was overthrown in 1991 and left. Siad Barre left behind a country, a peaceful Pan-African nation, a nation that helped to build African Union, Organization of African Unity, together with Emperor Haile Selassie, Sekou Toure, Gabriel Nasser, Milton Obote, Julius Nyerere, Kenneth Kaunda, Samora Machel, Patrice Lumumba, Nkrumah, Kabura, Sekou, these gallant sons of Africa built this Organization of African Union in Addis Ababa. Jomo Kenyatta, all of them came together and said the only way to beat colonialism, to send away the signals of unity of purpose, was to come together as the black continent of Africa, as the people of Africa, unite to fight, to speak with a voice. The first test of American foreign policy was seen in the Democratic Republic of Congo, by then called Zaire or Congo Kinshasa. We saw Lumumba going down, neocolonialism swept off, killed him. We have never buried Patrice Lumumba. The African continent still weeps. The Congolese still weep today that why their country is in a state of instability throughout since independence is they never buried their prime minister. The most powerful prime minister on the continent of Africa, who was assassinated. His body was never given to the people of Congo to bury. We lost that gentleman. He went. American foreign policy on Africa has always been, under Clinton, the policy brought us awareness of AIDS, trade increased. Under Bush, trade increased again. Africa gained quite a lot from the Bush administration because Bush concentrated more on other regions of Afghanistan and Iraq. He gave Africa a breathing space to mold itself the democracies that were coming. Ethiopia, Eritrea, although Eritrea later on went back to the bedrock of my friend whom I know very well since we worked together in London, Highbury, Islington, as a relief people for Africa. He went back to sleep with hyenas and eat with hyenas who kill people, maim people, destroy property, and still today he has never come out of it. The countries of the blue-eyed people grew up under Clinton. Look at Ethiopia, look at Rwanda, look at Uganda, look at those countries who were called blue-eyed men of Africa, with the new generation standing up, stamping authority. The people of Tanzania, the people of all these countries, the Kabilas, these were now looked at as the new format of liberators. America was happy with some of them until the tide changed. But let's go back to the Somali conflict. When America left Somalia, it had no exit plan. It didn't have plans to return, neither did it have plans to go. They left haphazardly because of troop movement, the war that had begun, the nationalism, the Somali nationalism swept the Americans off their feet. They are off their feet and they left Somalia in a hurried manner. Since 1991, the countries of the frontline states and African states have battled to pacify Somalia, to bring Somalia to the state of nationhood, to bring Somalia to be able to stand on its own with the people, the loving people, the millions of people whose country was dissected, was destroyed by war. The destruction that took place when rebel groups, militias, terrorists, Al-Qaeda, now Al-Shabaab, came into Somalia. They destroyed this country, killed it, managed to destroy the economy, the infrastructure, Somalia collapsed. Americans kept on lip service on Somalia. They did so because it was very, very crucial for them. But behind them, their message, they did not want to leave completely because they knew what they were doing. The first bad foreign policy of America will be judged from Somalia. For the last, since 1991 to date, we of the African states have been battling with changing regimes in America, in Somalia. We saw the courts, the union of the courts led by Sharif Ahmed Sharif, and another gentleman called Zakaria Abidi, who had another faction that had links with Eritrea and which still has links with Eritrea, which goes on to molest, and don't be shocked. Mr. Zakaria Abidi has been a member, a very senior member, working with Americans. And you can see, that's why I'm telling you, you have to be careful when you are discussing why Al-Shabaab cannot be. Why Al-Shabaab cannot be proscribed as a terrorist organization. But you run very quickly to proscribe Boko Haram. You run very quickly to proscribe the Lord Resistance Army in Uganda as terrorist. You run very quickly to proscribe Renamo. You run very quickly to proscribe South Sudan Liberation Movement and others. They are put on a list immediately because they don't want them to violate any sanctions. But why is it that the Americans refused to proscribe Al-Shabaab? I will be very frank, and the Kenyans must be very aware of this. Be aware. Take notes. The pattern behind the meeting between the Taliban commanders and the Americans should worry any strategist in this region. If you read the book, Dancing with Hyenas in the Horn of Africa by Dr. Hanege, you will find all this laid down. But I want to differ with Dr. Hanege on one position, that the Taliban, if you look at the pattern that led to today's Afghanistan, America today is talking to the Taliban in Doha. The strategists, my Ugandan strategist and the Kenyan strategist whose troops are in Somalia must take a stand. Because we've lost people. We have people with limbs in Kenya. We have people with limbs in Uganda. We have people in limbs with Djibouti. We have people in limbs in Somalia itself. We have people who have lost, whose property, who have been killed. But for you to veto, to refuse, proscribe Al-Shabaab as a terrorist designated place, there must be something wrong, or there's something that the American government is working together with some faction, moderate faction, somewhere in the capital, most likely Asmara, where they are discussing the things that must be there, must be told. We have suffered as a region. We have suffered, our brothers have died as a result of pacification of Somalia. We paid the price with the blood. Ugandans have paid the price. They were the first group of armed people to enter Somalia to defend this country from total collapse. We have no regrets for having gone there. And anybody here, whether diplomat or whatever, talking to us and talking to Kenyans, walking out of meetings of Kenyans, it cannot be. We must discuss this issue. Why is America, why did it refuse to proscribe terrorists, then they run to proscribe other organizations on the continent, which makes it very difficult for people to do a peace process. Sincerely speaking, when I was doing the peace process as the leader of the peace delegation, sanctioned by the EU, UN, African Union, to conduct a negotiation between the Lord Resistance Army and the government of Uganda in 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, it was very clear that there were double standards. I came across the double standards of the American hegemony when I was the chairman of the negotiating team. When I was negotiating openly with all EU, and Britain gave me mandate to do so together with other people, Americans were negotiating to pay off the rebels, to bring in money and pay the rebels. It is very shameful that we even lost because of the double standards. I don't want to mention the officers who accompanied us in the peace process, but one of them is Jendai Frazier, a negative element. Some people praise her as being very useful, but I, Dr. David, I don't. Jendai Frazier created us a havoc in the peace process. We were lucky as Ugandans. We had hammered all the five agenda up to accountability. I can see South Sudan on the same level where agenda number 5 is accountability. I want to wish my brothers in South Sudan the will, the courage, the determination. I want to wish especially Dr. Riek Machar to understand the position that Americans operate when it comes to wars that are in Africa. Calm down quickly and sign this agreement and perform to spare our country called South Sudan. When we reached agenda number 5, we Ugandans decided to implement whether the rebels want or not. I want to thank President Museveni. Tomorrow he will celebrate 57 years with peace in one country, in the country, with freedom for people of northern Uganda to run, to enjoy, to celebrate with their families, whether they are poor. But there is no war anymore in northern Uganda. We finished it because we stood firm against imperial machinery, against the American interference, where they wanted to divide the peace process using the ICC to indict people, yet they are not members of the ICC. Still look at the double standards of our American people. They are not members of the ICC, but they tell the ICC to collect African leaders, dump them in The Hague. Until now, they have been beaten also. That the same ICC wanted to touch the American soldiers, that they said the ICC is very bad. But they were condemning me when I was saying ICC is an obnoxious, it is a Montego Bay of Europe that detains African people only, that looks for African people, that dismembers the continent, that goes out. African courts are more useful than the International Criminal Court, because this is a court that has no assessors. This is a court that has no jury. This is a court that prosecutes, investigates one person. The chief prosecutor investigates, prosecutes, and above all, decides sentence. That's the court of international nature that we have in The Hague. Americans got banned when they were also going to be indicted for the crimes that they have committed in Afghanistan. And I hope one day something will change. When Mr. Trump came to power, Mr. Trump changed the whole scope of African politics and the whole of American foreign policy. He told us that it's America first, Africa, you are on your own. The trouble with Trump's administration is double speak. The trouble with Trump's administration is the way of underground silent diplomacy that destroys the same motives that we have died for. Today, as I speak, believe me, this will come to be revealed that why they did not proscribe Al-Shabaab is because they knew that they were going to talk to some members of Al-Shabaab. And indeed, some members of moderate leaders of Al-Shabaab have boasted that they are being talked to. So if agencies in this region don't see this, it is up to you people, my people of Africa. My role is to speak like Nkrumah. My role is to speak like Nyerere. If you listen to my voice, it almost goes like Nkrumah and Nyerere. They never had the big voices of Trump and Obama. They had the voices of this nature. They spoke with the truth and the frankness. They spoke with reality. They put reality on table for Africa to rise and defend itself. We have been captured. If you look at what we have lost in Somalia, the conflict between Kenya and Somalia is as a result of oil companies. And who are these oil companies? One of them is an American oil company called Exxon. Exxon Oil Company bought blocks in Somalia. Why have we kept quiet? Why do we fight with Somalia, which has been a peaceful arrangement for years and years? The ruling that can come out of ICJ, which could be very bad ruling for this region. Do we have anywhere that we are going to say we shall never live with Somalia? We shall live with Somalia throughout. We live with them. And there is no way we shall separate ourselves from the brotherhood that we have. Our brotherhood between us and the Somalis is real. It is not surrounded, it's not separated by an Atlantic Ocean. Our brotherhood is separated not by the beliefs. Our relationship is permanent, and that's why God put us together and near each other. We have not been separated by any of the oceans. We are together. We have the same hinterland. We drink in the same ocean. We travel in the same ocean. We have the same feelings. The Somalis in Kenya and Uganda and wherever they are treated like equal Africans. We never have a problem, but the problem is coming because of a bad foreign policy of America. Coming down to the level of why do we have conflicts. Ambassador John Bolton set the tone of the administration of America. He said in a speech where he challenged African governments to choose the United States over China and Russia for the commercial, security, and political relationships. You can now see why we have a problem on the African continent. I am glad that Ambassador John Bolton himself is bolting out, is leaving the Trump administration because it has treated him very badly to the extent that he has nothing to look back and put as a record. The Somali episode taught us quite a lot of lessons. Today, as things unfold, Somalia stands as a country with a failed government, corrupt government supported by American Republican administration, because the president Farmajo was also an American Republican. They have decided to mortgage the state. They have decided to mortgage the people. They have decided to get what they cannot get out of America. This is what we want. Let's leave country number 1, Somalia. Let's go to country number 2. Country number 2, Libya. Resolution 1970 of the United Nations Security Council. Unfortunately, I'm going to be very brutal. That mandated the dismembering of Libya was supported by South Africa. I want to tell the Africans on this continent that whenever you see Jacob Zuma run, his administration supported the dismembering of Libya. And Libya was, and I repeat, Libya was the country that supported Mandela to fight apartheid. What a shame to Jacob Zuma. He instructed his ambassador at the United Nations to vote in favor of the resolution. Another country that has dismembered Africa, along with the United States, is France. If you look at all the French colonies, we have a problem with Houston. There is no French territory that has peace. Show me one. Show me. Equatorial Guinea, chaos. Cameroon, chaos. Central African Republic, chaos. Sure, let's go. Mali, chaos. Burkina Faso, chaos. Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, chaos. Let's go. Name them. Name them. Which one on this continent has peace? Democratic Republic of Congo, chaos. Burundi, chaos. Rwanda left the French tag. It's a Commonwealth state. It's peaceful. Burundi is in chaos. Let's go. Let's mention Madagascar. Coup after coup. Seychelles. Chaos. Running, breaking things. Together with the US, the French have manufactured a foreign policy that keeps these African countries on the run. And don't be shocked that in Somalia, the French have now entered there. They have found somewhere where they influence Somali government, sell the sellout called Mr. Famijo, who has sold out Somalia to the people of of America and France. Total Oil, I swear, is behind Qatar in buying all this, building the airports, building the ports, building what? Disorganizing us, who have fought and suffered, whose parents, whose sons, whose daughters have died in Somalia to pacify that nation. If you look at Djibouti, another puppet satellite state on the continent of Africa, a state that does not believe that there is African Union, a country that hops between the Red Sea and the African hinterland, a country that has one leg in the sea and one leg on the land of Africa, a country that claims to have African Union unity, but it plays the tune of the French hegemony. Together with the United States of America, Djibouti is being favored as a favorite state, satellite state to operate in the region, to speak on behalf of the Americans and the French. That is why Djibouti has got the guts to refuse a resolution of African Union, to take one candidate for the United Nations Security Council, Kenya, and decided to go it alone up to now. These are facts that Africans must know, that we are on one continent. But we have different bodies. Some of the people, surrogates of American foreign bad policy, are killing our own good policies that we can in nature become a democratic continent. If you look at Djibouti challenging Kenya at the United Nations seat, is a loud laugh. No country in Africa. Morocco tried us, African Union. It failed. Djibouti, you will also fail. Because you are being given instructions from America to go and operate, destabilize Kenya getting this seat in the United Nations. You have romped in your brother Faramijo of Somalia, another one who's following the Republican hegemony in the continent of Africa. It is sad, therefore, that Libya was left to be eaten between General Haftar, Khalifa Haftar. Today, as we speak, General Khalifa Haftar has been armed by France, Egypt, United Arab Emirates. To some extent, they have bought mercenaries from Russia. But the United States of America, which actually helped to dismember under Obama, Libya, is watching helplessly. Because France has told them, let us clean the oil. We just assume the oil fields. You will come in later. Don't come in now. Libya is in a disaster. Libya is bleeding. General Khalifa Haftar, an American puppet with an American passport like Faramijo, has stuck and divided against the will of African Union, killing people in Tripoli, dismembering them, destroying property. This is what makes us detest the American foreign policy. Country number 3 or 4, Nigeria. The country of Nigeria is under siege from Boko Haram. Nigerian problems are compounded by the leadership in Nigeria itself, led by General Buhari, not accepting that his country is in trouble and it needs help. But why has he stuck to his guns that he has left Boko Haram to kill, to maim, to destroy property? As a result of the Libyan bombardment and dismantling of a state in Libya, Boko Haram grew up in Nigeria. Arms were brought in all the way through the Sahara region, through Mali and other states of the Sahara region. Today we see this happening in Nigeria. Nigeria has 3 problems. Identity. If you look at Nigeria, you might think a country of 200 million people is able to bring Africa to a place where Africans can be able to discuss, to engage, and bring about an African unity of purpose. Nigeria today has internal strife where Biafrans are demanding for an independent state. In the north, we have Boko Haram destroying, killing, maiming, abducting, raping, defiling younger women, abducting younger women, taking them to custody of where the places we don't know. Nigeria is faced with the highest rate of corruption. Nigeria again, with internal strife of the Biafran people want their independence. the democracy that they have been yearning for, the freedom to have a referendum to decide the destiny of the Biafran people. The American foreign policy has destroyed Nigeria. They watch, they sit, they laugh, they close the embassy because too many Americans are applying for asylum in America. Too many Nigerians are going into embassies to apply asylum. And therefore, America was forced to close its consulate in Abuja and torn down. Why? Because they have sat helplessly. They bargain, they watch. They want to make sure that the 200 million people of Nigeria are never united. Viewers, it is up to you to make a decision. The question of Somalia gives you an example of a failed foreign policy, American foreign policy. Believe me or not, it will be a matter of time that you will find that America is talking to Al-Shabaab in a certain peaceful city of the world. That's why the Kenyans should have done more lobby. They should have asked international experts who know how American foreign policy works in order to be able to design the destiny of their country and their membership. Viewers, having discussed America, foreign policy in Nigeria, we want to come to South Sudan, a country that makes me cry every day. When you look at how America plays us double talk, two nationals of America, or three of them, Mr. Clooney, Mr. Pendergast, and Mr. George Soros. Mr. George Soros launders money. And after laundering money, he brings this money to kill African countries. In Kenya, you have seen Mudavadi now is speaking like someone has pumped in some new blood. You can see the way he's speaking. He's forgotten that as much as he was meeting the George Soros in the office, every African was also, intelligence systems were watching. I'm not afraid of telling the truth. I tell it as it is. Let him say he did not go to George Soros' office. He did. But we know why he's speaking so loudly and so, arrogantly. The money has arrived. I tell you, those three gentlemen are the foreign policy, the second other hidden foreign policy makers of America. When they choose to come for you, they all come. Clooney, Pendergast. Have you ever heard of a report called Century? They have these NGOs. You know, the worst part of it is that Africans don't support Matsanga's NGO. Not an NGO, Matsanga's group, activist group of Pan-African Forum. I should be supported. I would have written a better report on Sudan. The most dangerous thing for us Africans, and I want to say it here, President Salva Kiir picks $1.7 million to give it to Ambassador Reinberger. It is Ambassador Reinberger who took Ruto and Uhuru to the ICC. How do you give him to stop you from going to the tribunal? Our African presidents have a problem themselves. We take ourselves to the graveyard of the American hypocrisy. Ambassador Reinberger is the one who took us to the ICC when he was in Kenya. And today, as we speak, Ambassador Reinberger is an advisor to Sudan. What has happened? A new report by Clooney and Pendergast in the Century and Project Enough has now labeled the leaders in East Africa, entire East Africa, put them on a list ready for sanctions. This is what we should not be happy about. We should start looking at all the necessary means to make sure that as Africans, we talk like Africans. Let's pause for a minute. Don't go away. I can see so many. Ambassador Rainbagger, whatever you call him, I don't know. Whether he rains and the bags, I don't know. But Ambassador Rainbagger is the one who took us the trouble. He coined fake evidence in Kenya to deliver Kenyans and leave them in the Hague for slaughter. You can't give such a man to be your advisor and changing your foreign policy. He will take you to the United Nations tribunal, Mr. Salva Kiir. Mark my lips today. If your advisors are watching this, tell him, be careful, because the tribunal is coming. There is no peace that you can make, a political peace without accountability peace. You have to account, and they will do it, they will fix you on that one. Let's take a break. As we take a break, let's look at this video of Chinese, the trade. Who is who in the world? Because you saw Ambassador Bolton was telling us that we Africans should prefer Americans than Chinese. Take a look.
Yesterday, the Fortune 500 global list came out, and for the first time ever, the United States of America did not have the largest number of companies in it. We have been officially taken over by, you guessed it, China. Of the top 500 top companies in the world, 129 of them are now Chinese, while the US has 121 companies in the Fortune 500 global list. Just 20 years ago, China had only 8 companies in the Fortune 500, back in 1999. What a surge. But wait, there is even more. There is another list I want to talk about. While our president and our politicians and our media, they are constantly telling us how we are number one across the board on everything, including banking. But that is not true anymore. Here is the list of the top 10 largest banks in the entire world. Number 1, the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, ICBC. Number 2, China Construction Bank Corporation. Number 3 is also a Chinese bank, the Agricultural Bank of China. Number 4 is also Chinese, Bank of China Limited. Number 5 is a British bank, HSBC Holdings. Number 6, this is where finally a US bank shows up on the list, which is JP Morgan Chase, while 20 years ago the top 8 in the list used to be all American banks. Number 7, we find a French bank, BNP Paribas. Number 8 is Mitsubishi, which is Japanese. Number 9, Bank of America, and finally in number 10, we have the French bank Crédit Agricole. So as you can see, this is how really the world is changing economically, even if the mainstream media does not seem to want to talk about it. Today America has only 2 banks among the top 10 largest banks in the world. That list is predominantly Chinese. Trump's greatest economy ever is not that great after all. Despite him constantly bragging and tweeting about it, we need to tell the truth to the American public. I'm sure future generations will look fondly back at this greatest economy ever that will be directly responsible for driving them into permanent generational slavery. This was the Atlantis Report. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
I want to call upon the people of Amazonia today, wherever you are in the diaspora in Amazonia itself, that in a struggle you are bound to have divisions. But divisions should not divert you from the main focus, the main challenge. We have struggled to expose the happenings, the human rights abuses in Amazonia. The army has killed hundreds and hundreds of thousands, burnt houses of people, internet was cut off, schools were closed, dispensaries, hospitals were burnt down. Amazonians should not be intimidated by Paul Robia. It It is not upon the leaders of Amazonia, because I am not from Amazonia, but I've played a pivotal role in making sure that I loud out the voices, I put out the call, I call upon AU, EU, United Nations, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International. Many of them have listened to some of the things that I say here, and they have come at last. America, United States of America, is slowly moving towards giving the Amazonian people the dignity they deserve. I therefore call upon the leaders and the leadership of the Amazonian people to unite for a purpose. The unity of purpose is paramount, as opposed to disunity, which has nothing but only produces ego that we have seen in South Sudan. What has killed South Sudan is not because they don't have the money, the minerals, the resources. Is ego between Riek Machar and Salva Kiir. We would not like to see that ego come to the people of Amazonia, the leadership of Amazonia. I call upon Samuel Sako, Akanga, Miran, and Eko to unite and talk with one voice on international scene that will bring about the peace, the tranquility that you yearn for since 1961, when the resolution 1608 was abandoned by the United Nations General Assembly and Amazonia was annexed by the Cameroon government by then. I call upon you, my brothers, to pick up the unity call and free your people with disintegration. Thank you. There are a number of countries in Africa that produce oil. Kenya today became one of the member states of oil producing countries in Africa. It exported its first oil, where President Uhuru Kenyatta flagged off the oil that was got from Turkana in one of the northeastern parts of this country. But is oil a curse to Africa? Is oil a curse to the entire places where oil is found? We see in the Middle East, the wars in Iran, in Saudi Arabia, in Yemen, in United Arab Emirates. It has developed the area in Qatar. We all have many cities, skyscrapers coming up because of the proceeds from the oil. But can Africa emulate that example and bring the same oil proceeds to make sure that it makes lives better for the people, the betterment of the people of Africa and their families and their other activities? I want to see that. But I might not be able to explain why Africa always falls a victim. Are there external forces that make the oil in Africa to become sour? Is it the competition of the oil companies, Total and Shell, BP and others, that come to Africa to take the share of the oil? Simply because we have no energy, ability to be able to drill the oil ourselves, refine it ourselves. It is shocking, therefore, to go to Nigeria, for example, a country that produces third in the world for oil production, has no petrol at the petrol station. Is this not a curse? If it's not a curse, what do you call it? Thank you. Thank you very much, viewers. We are back, and I hope you have watched some of those clips. We have a few minutes, like almost all. We have a few minutes that we need to work on. We are running out of time, but we shall make very quickly. We want to make it very clear and clearly known that the Americans had three principles and the three pillars of their policy of advancing United States prosperity through advancing trade. They also had in their policy commercial ties with nations across the region to benefit both United States and Africa, security through countering the threat of radical Islamic terrorism and a violent conflict, and stability through foreign aid while ensuring the United States taxpayers' dollars for aid are used efficiently. Those are the key pillars of American foreign policy in Africa. But we lack tools of mechanism of making sure that we also counter back. There's quite a lot that America picks from us. But for America to deny us several things, I want to come to country that always makes me cry. Zimbabwe. The American policy on Zimbabwe, despite the fact that the European Union have removed the sanctions, and only 3 items remain on the sanction list from the European Union point of view. One of them is the late President Mugabe is now gone, the wife of President Mugabe, and the Zimbabwe Army Defense Forces industries. Those are the only 3 items that are still on the European Union sanction list. America still added more sanctions on Zimbabwe by stopping any sale of diamonds that are dug and produced in Zimbabwe. Despite the fact that there was an election that was conducted, how it came out is up to the observers who were there, including ourselves. It was conducted. There is no election in the world that goes without people making noise. Madam Clinton today is making noise how Mr. Trump wanted to wreck him through the Russian spy networks. Today, Trump is trying to steal an election through the Ukrainian cyber experts, and he was caught on phone pleading with the Ukrainian president to allow thieves, cyber crime terrorists to come and steal him and put him in power. You see, this is a country which comes to Africa and goes to Zimbabwe and tells Zimbabweans that unless you have demonstrations, unless you have sanctions, unless you have demonstrations, allow MDC to have demonstrations, allow MDC to insult the president, allow elections to be free and fair, while Trump is buying elections. He's buying elections. We don't buy elections in Africa. Look at this. In Uganda, for example, the situation changes. Now, Uganda is being targeted. Individuals are being targeted. The entire army command will collapse. They will never travel to America. And yet they are doing a great job in Somalia. How do you expect these guys to go and guard Somalia, where you have opened an embassy? Guard your embassy when you don't allow them to go into your embassy in Somalia. Uganda holds elections. Elections in Africa have never been free and fair except a few places, because we have not reached the degree of democratization. Democracy evolves. Democracy cannot be an American democracy example. The American democracy is 260 years. The African democracy, the first country, is 67 years this year. Uganda is 57 years tomorrow. It has been evolving out of the 57 years, over 30 years. 30 years. Uganda has been fighting wars. Tomorrow, I believe President Museveni will honor people who have managed to bring peace in that country. I'm one of those who brought that peace in northern Uganda. The last war that we saw was in northern Uganda. I believe you cannot act the democratic way in America, bring it on Africa, impose. But what America is doing is blacklisting every African. Very soon, all Africans will be blacklisted from going to the United States of America. This is not the policy that we should think about and ignore and go about and say, we are doing very well. We are guarding Somalia, where the embassy has been opened. We are making sure that Somali people get back their lives. The Ugandans have put their lives down. How many black bags that end up, body bags, that go back to Entebbe as a result of Al-Shabaab killing them? But we have not left Somalia. Our children, our sons, our brothers, our sisters, our uncles, our fathers, our mothers are in Somalia. We are defending the territory, the integrity of the Somali people. Why should sanctions be used as a tool to dismember a peaceful African country? The question of Somalia, the question of Zimbabwe, now the question of Uganda, where sanctions seem to be the norm of the day, the new colonial tool used to police, to make sure that you don't talk about America. Talking about that, the news that just came in is, I want a letter which I have sent to my production team. The news that just came in is that the chairman of the Africa Commission, Mohamed Mousi Faki, has actually sacked the AU permanent representative at the United Nations. Sacked her in a letter, a woman who has been, that is the letter that has just been sent by her to me in a few minutes, sent it to me, intercepted it, and the letter goes very clearly, Mr. Mohamed Faki, a Chadian by national, a nation of Chad, a French puppet on this continent, has sacked Ambassador Arikan Chihomboriro Kuo, a woman. All of you saw the video, how this woman was working so hard in the United Nations in New York, how she talked about colonialism being brought by France, because she went on criticizing the French policy in Africa that kills Africa. The French told their master dog in Addis Ababa to sack the lady. There you are. The letter is there. And that's why you should be watching diplomatic leaks. The ambassador was watching this from New York, and she just sent me the letter. We know each other very well. And she said, my brother, you have struggled for Africa. And here we are. Ambassador, a permanent representative of African Union mission to United States of America in Washington. This is my woman, a hard-working friend of mine, has been summarily sacked because the French, how on earth did, again, the non-African state capture our African Union? That's a topic for another day, but that is diplomatic leaks. You can see we get it as it is. Those who think we don't have things at fingertips are lost, and they will be lost like a Faramijo of Somalia. He will be lost forever. Thank you very much. I want to come to the question of South Sudan as our final topic. South Sudan is supposed to implement the agreement in November. But before we do that, several forces have come in now to make sure that this agreement fails. One, these forces have started targeting President Salva Kiir, naming him here and there, attacking him of the things that themselves created. President Salva Kiir has tried his level best to hold South Sudan, the remaining South Sudan, to where it is. President Salva Kiir today needs help. That help cannot come if you condemn him. He's a president of a country. He was left hanging on the presidency. We need to give him help. We give him support. We need to give him financial muscle to police the agreement, to restructure the agreement, to fulfill the ceasefire. Sudan needs this money. Without this money, you cannot police the agreement. Without this money, you cannot resettle. Without this money, you cannot do accountability. Without this money, you cannot trade. Without this money, Sudan cannot pay for its workers. Time has come for us to be realistic. And the international community, especially those who walk around looking for countries to dismember, we must plow back. The ones that have been taking South Sudan oil should plow back into South Sudan so that they can restructure themselves, and then the countries can come back to plow and take away the goods that they saw. But for them to come and take the oil and leave us Africans to fight, to struggle to get all the resources to pay for the peace implementation of South Sudan. South Sudan needs help. And Americans have been at the forefront of taking sides on this conflict. Time has come. They send Clooney, they send Pendergast, and the Central Group to do an obnoxious, a horror report without real truth, which actually blacklists several people in the region over things that are not true, but from pork and meat joints of East Africa, where the NGOs come to work and sit in pork joints to collect rumors. It is sad, therefore, that as we Africans sit wherever we are, we better start thinking of what it means to be on the continent. It is time that we've looked at all avenues that can bring us peace that we yearn for. It is time that we sat down and organized ourselves to the level of an African organization, African Union. It is time that we looked at events where we have gone wrong and avoid the pitfalls of American foreign hegemony. America is also trying to buy elections. Why should America, I want to leave you with this, why should America, which is trying to buy elections, try to kill, to tell an African country that you don't have democracy? If Mr. Trump is buying Ukraine, telling Ukraine to spy him, to get equipment, to hack the system so that he can become a president for the second term, why should Mr. Trump come to tell us about democracy in Africa? Viewers, thank you very much for watching me. I'll return next week, perhaps with 2 or 3 guests who will be on the panel, who have agreed already to be on the panel. And diplomatic leaks. You have seen today that leaked letter. It has arrived on our desk. We collect quite a lot. We have a lot on Somalia and on ICJ. the conflict of maritime between Somalia. We have a lot. We are making progress. The people who sold these oil platforms, I tell you, don't sit pretty, because the way things are moving, you might be cold and you might be in a cold room. So don't sit pretty. The judge in The Hague, just pack and go away. Come to Djibouti where you have been offered a house, or go to Turkey where you have a house, and the rest while the judgment and the decisions are made. You are not worth to be on that panel. Things are not cooking well. I'm prepared and I'm willing to meet, and I'm going to meet the registry to consolidate my points, to make my points very clear that I did file these complaints without fear or favor or without any inducement from any country in Africa. But I followed, I researched, and filed a complaint to International Court of Justice about this judge who is a great friend. And I want to take this opportunity to announce that in the last 1 month, Mr. Farmajo has called the International Court of Justice Judge Abdallah Q. Yusuf 26 times on the telephone number from Mogadishu to the Netherlands. They have had a discussion. I want to challenge Mr. Yusuf to show me from his telephone number how many times he has called Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Then I can give up and I surrender. I've now told you officially, and I'm going to write a statement. I've already made a complaint. On Thursday, I will make a complaint before the investigators, before the registry, about 26 times telephone call, conversation between Farmajo and Abdallah Q. Yusuf. What do they discuss? What have they been discussing? If the telephone numbers are not for President Farmajo, let him issue a statement and say I'm lying. If the telephone number is not for Haj Yusuf, that's how I work. That's how I work in Africa. Believe me or not, Yusuf, you have nowhere to hide, because the data from serious systems. I want to thank my boys in Paris for the good job you did. There you are. Just pack and ship, Yusuf. You can't sit on this panel. If you have rang Mr. Kenyatta for once, the log sheet would have shown. Thank you very much, viewers. The case continues. Diplomatic Ties returns next Tuesday with a big bang, because it might be somebody's pre-birthday. So it could be very good pre-birthday. Wagwan, is it? No. Yes. So we shall come with a big bang next week. No, 2 weeks from now, isn't it? It will be a good bang back in the politics of Africa. Diplomatic leaks. If you have something diplomatic that you can't say, we are activists, international policemen, public protectors. I protect the public for public interest. That's why I took the case and filed an application, a complaint. I'm not a state, but I'm an individual who can file a complaint against any member of the judiciary in The Hague. Therefore, now I have gone further. I've received what I've been looking for. I want Mr. Yusuf, Abdalaki Yusuf, to tell the world 26 times he was talking to Faramijo, the brother of Faramijo. Both of them, their telephones. What does he do with them? Were they talking clan issues? Were they talking about this boundary? So, pack and ship. Thank you. This station, therefore, is for Africa with Africa. And I forgot something before I do that. Cameroon, Amazonia. I will bring you back tomorrow on Thursday. The Punch. It will be right from another capital on Thursday night. The Punch on Amazonia is the unity among the opposition Amazonians crumbling. I just want to hear that on Thursday. Amazonia, you seem to be crumbling when you're about to succeed. God bless you. God bless Africa. God bless the entire continent. May peace return in places where there is no peace. I would want to take this opportunity to wish all Ugandans the best of their ability for the 57 years that they will mark tomorrow. I thank you very much. Some of us independence came when we were already grown-ups and we could go. We went to our county headquarters to witness the fire being lit and the flag coming down. So I am before independence boy, and I'm a very happy person. I want to wish those who are witnessing this independence. This is 57 years ago. I was already up. So you can add up my age and you know how old I am. Thank you very much. Take care. Look after yourself. Keep Africa smiling. This station is for Africa, with Africa, by Africa. Ciao.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.